everyone. This is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, May 31st of 2026. Now, when I started journaling this week, it actually started on my phone. I was out on my walk, and this typically happens on a really regular basis when I don't listen to anything. So, music or a podcast, or sometimes I'll catch up on my phone calls with my siblings, or I'll do some work phone calls even when I'm walking. But on the days when I just have silence, I'm just walking and listening to the thoughts in my head, which, if you're like me in this modern crazy world, the thoughts can come and they can morph into really beautiful things if you let them, if you take the time to just be in silence and be without something always in our ear, distracting us, teaching us, um, just being a modern human, right? So, I've got some notes on my phone I'm going to read through. And then what I did is I expanded on the very first one for today's thoughts. So here's what I wrote. If you knew that everything would work out exactly how it's supposed to, how would you walk through your life or day differently? Let life flow as it's supposed to. I mean, that is always so relevant for me. And then I wrote, what if everything changes simply by adding awareness? This one is so massive that there's things that are right in front of our face. There are intuitive hits, answers from the universe, answers from God, answers from our higher self. Um, when we add awareness to anything, it changes. So, what if everything changes by simply adding awareness? I had some really beautiful aha moments and experiences early in the week that were like, whoa, just putting my awareness on this one thing changed it. And this might be a good topic for next week. And then I wrote awareness of life, death, your life path, your decisions, your truth, no regrets, forgiveness, love, our soul's purpose, gratitude, quiet strength, stillness, and no mistakes. I'm literally walking as I'm typing this out in the notes section of my computer and my phone. Uh, and then I said, what would it take to regulate my nervous system? I think that's been my biggest challenge. Uh, Probably my almost my whole adult life, and even if I were to put it into my life as a very young person, because I was born and raised in a family, second oldest of 14 kids. There were mostly 10 or 11. Um, there were actually, so my mom was pregnant with my youngest brother when I was pregnant with my youngest son. So there were about 12 before I moved out of the house and got married and started having my own kids. But that's still a great big family. And when you are raised in a family that big, or you have other life circumstances that put you in a place of responsibility and high nervous system regulation, this has been a constant throughout my whole adult life. So I wrote, what would it take to regulate my nervous system? That was just a question that I wanted to write down as it came in and journal on it. I want all the same things that humans want: the safety of certainty and the certainty. Um, I said the safety of certainty. That's that's what I want. And the only certainty is change. And then I wrote, duh, because we are in a time of massive change, right? So we all want certainty. We want the safety of certainty. But the only thing that's a constant in this life, or anything about being on a planet where things flow and humanity flows, the only thing that's constant is change. And then I wrote, duh. Um, then I wrote, why do I still want certainty? Is it human hardwiring, or is it programming? You know, I think when we're young, when we're children, uh, we're open for anything. We're open for curiosity and spontaneity and a new adventure, and we have no judgments on things. So I don't believe that it's hardwired into us, at least not 100% or even the majority of the percent. I think that what makes us want certainty is the programming, that we have to have certainty and safety and security, um, when really it's been programmed into us, okay? And then the last thing I wrote on my phone is I believe it was easier before the distractions. So the distractions of our phones and our computers and all the billboards and the noise and there are so many distractions to being a human being. So those are just some of the thoughts that I wrote down on my phone while I was walking along. That was actually the very first of the week, and I had a lot more come in, but I did spend a good chunk of my walking days this week, catching up on some phone calls and connecting with siblings and a couple of good friends, a friend who's got a birthday. And so I'm a good multitasker when it comes to that stuff. So I'm just going to share what I wrote in my journal and see if any of this resonates with you. So the main crux or the main idea, okay, let me find that again because this is the very beginning. If I knew everything would work out exactly as it was supposed to, how would I walk through my day and my life differently? Okay, what if I just let things flow? And I'm not talking about being proactive in things and taking care of business and preparing. I'm just talking about letting life flow. Okay, so I came up with some really good stuff because it really does feel like things are different. The things that are happening in the world, these are not like, I thought, okay, well, look at the things that have changed humanity, like the Industrial Revolution, the agricultural um, system. These are things that change. Even the transportation. You look at when the cars were um, first invented and the airplanes, and we just think these changes are too massive. It's going to disrupt our way of life. But when I really think about it, I do not think that this is just a normal change, because the things that really stand out to me are things like AI, digital currency, digital ID. And to me, this is not just something to sit back and watch. Um, so this is where it feels like there's a bit of a big opposite here, where you're just letting life flow. So those are the things that I'm not talking about. So here's what I wrote. It feels different now. It's not because of the technology that's advancing or because the governments are changing or the economies are shifting, because they are. The economies, I talk about this probably not as often as it interests me, but I'm fascinated by what's happening in our monetary system. And I research and I watch different things on a regular basis because it's interesting to me, because we are in a time right now where this is really rare. Our monetary system is changing. And I believe that there is a window of opportunity that could change what your money looks like in the future. And what I think is the good people need to get in on this, and I believe that there are plenty and many, but so that we can be the change, because our money is changing. Whether you see it or not, or your head's in the sand, or you don't know it. I'm surprised at how many people can feel the change of just the monetary economic system, um, but they don't quite know what to make of it, and maybe they're not interested enough, or maybe they're intimidated by it. But to me, the economies are shifting. So then I wrote this. It feels different because the foundations of all these things are actually shifting. We're not just going to be moving faster from a horse and buggy to a car, even though I'm sure that seemed pretty startling to the people back then, right? And I think it's these things: artificial intelligence, digital identity, and digital currency. Those are the things that we need to pay attention to. And I wrote here, these are not small changes. These are changes that actually change, like, the infrastructure, the very architecture of our civilization. Okay. Some days I wonder if, as humanity, we're approaching a threshold that we've never experienced before. So I'm talking about all of the other big, massive changes. This is what I personally feel. And I've never lived through, the Industrial Revolution. I was born in 61, so World War II was already over. Um, so I've never really actually lived through that. And I'm sure for all of humanity that's lived through these big changes has felt the same thing. But for some reason, this feels like a different threshold to me. So that's what I wrote. Um, so I wrote, perhaps it's true. Perhaps every single civilization has felt it this way when there is a great transformation taking place. Um, and then I wrote this: the people of the ancient times, the ancient empires, I think they likely believe that their systems would last forever. I think every single civilization thinks that, every generation, especially if you are a certain generation old, like if you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s. um, I I never really dreamed I'd be living through what we're living through and seeing it all change. I really never did. I mean, you always think these things stay the same. Um, then I wrote this: the people living through the invention of these different things, writing, the printing press, electricity, and as I mentioned before, the Industrial Revolution. Okay. I'm sure they felt the same uncertainty. But here's where I think it's different. Um, the speed, the speed of the change. And it seems to be accelerating and going faster. And it's not just one thing, okay? It's information, it's technology, it is our consciousness, and that one is good. I think if we can look at everything as good, then there we go, right? Fear is accelerating, but also awareness is accelerating. And what I find interesting is it feels like everything is moving at once. And this is where it can get a little crazy unless you have some things in place to ground yourself. And that's why I really thought about nervous system regulation and how important that is. So then I wrote this: I have spent so many years, most of my adulthood, questioning everything. Okay. Everything. I've watched the medical system, the government, I've told you guys hundreds of times, my parents, my dad especially, opened my eyes and the eyes of my siblings, not in a preachy kind of a way, just in an awareness kind of way. The things that would happen and the people that would come into our home and my dad's friends and the things I got to watch and experience my dad do with what he did with botany and herbs and the friends that he had. And it was a very blessed childhood, if I think about it, if I really were to put the best word on it. um, so I've watched all this stuff. I'm beginning to wonder if I see through all this deception. Let's see what I write. I'm beginning to wonder if seeing through all this deception is only the first stage. And I wrote the first stage of awakening, because I think that is the first stage. And because I was blessed with that, I had that stage when I was very young. Okay, and so that's the first stage, is you're seeing through the deception. So the goal is to not become consumed by it. That's my goal. Um, there's wisdom in merely recognizing that it's there, and the darkness and the deception. There is the beautiful awareness in just seeing that it's there, because then it changes everything, right? So I wrote this: perhaps wisdom is refusing to let the darkness become the center of my life. Perhaps that's wisdom right there. I'm not going to let this darkness consume me. And I find that people who are extra sensitive and extra aware, um, it's easy to let that consume you. It's because it feels like despair, right? So then I wrote this: if I knew that everything was unfolding exactly as it was meant to unfold, how would I walk through my days differently? And this is something that I pay extra attention to, but I get caught up in the flow of modern life and modern distractions, and just like everyone else, I get caught in that. So this is what I decided: I would breathe deeper, I would carry less tension, because I find myself holding my breath, and I find myself sometimes clenched, and I just have to relax, right? So I would breathe deeper, I would carry less tension, and here's something that is really important for people like me, because I have a very responsible personality, a responsible place in my family lineup, but I would stop feeling responsible for saving everyone. Okay? That's how I would, one of the things that I would do differently. If I knew that humanity, the trajectory of what we're going through is unfolding exactly as it's supposed to, and I just need to relax and go with the flow. And I'm not talking about be lazy and stop doing stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about unclench and breathe deeper and have more fun. All this stuff. I've been talking about this for a few weeks. And I would spend less time reacting and more time creating. And this is something that I am actually getting very, very good at. And I have a big list of creative things that I want to do and I love to do. And I'm realizing that when I relax and go with the flow, that I can be a lot more creative and bring these ideas that I want to bring to the world. I can bring them out. And I know if you're listening to this, you have the exact same things in the creativity department. Not the same things I'm doing, but you've got creativity and gifts to bring to the world. And if you're so caught worrying about how the world's unfolding, you can't actually make a difference, right? Which is what I think that's happening. So then I would do this. I would spend less time trying to expose the darkness, and I would spend a lot more energy just being the light. I would just, anytime I find myself doing the darkness thing and getting stressed about what's happening, I just need to bring myself back to center and think about bringing the energy of light, right? It's pretty powerful, actually. I would remember that my attention is one of the most valuable resources that I possess. I talk about this all the time. Your attention is what the powers that be that are trying to control us, that's what they're after. And it might even be just to help you become a better consumer. Consume, consume, consume. Buy this. You need more of this. You need all of these things. It's a consumer society that we live in. And I really do believe things are shifting now. So I would remember that my attention is one of the most valuable resources that I possess. And I need to remember that what I focus on grows. Where attention goes, energy flows. How many times have you heard that? If you've been on a personal growth path, 100 times, right? Maybe more. If I knew everything would work out, I would not stop caring. I wanted to put that in there because this is not about just laying back and letting things happen at all. It's quite the opposite, because then you show up differently, right? I would simply stop carrying any fear as if it were my responsibility to carry it. We think it's our responsibility to carry fear and angst and anxiety, and because there's things that we see happening and we feel powerless to change them, but it makes us feel better if we are in fear about it or we're in anxiety and stress about it, because it makes us feel like we're doing something, or it makes us feel like we're not empathetic if we're out living a brilliant life, creating joy and bringing creativity, right? So then it's this. So I would simply stop carrying fear as if it were my responsibility to carry it. I would become more deliberate, more grounded, more peaceful, and I would become more sovereign. This is a very important word for me. My own sovereignty, my own freedom. And I think as much as we can be in this human avatar, my consciousness, my soul, the part of me that is divine consciousness and God source, that will always be sovereign and free. Always. No one can take that away from me. No one or nothing can take that away from me. But it's always been very important to me in this life, in this physical life, my freedom, my privacy. Those are like, that is a deep part of what makes me me. And I know that's not as deep for other people, but I think it's becoming more and more in the awareness of a lot of human beings. We're realizing the surveillance that's out there, our phones track us, all the stuff. So then I wrote this. I think that the challenge of our generation is learning how to remain human. And then I wrote deeply human in this increasingly digital world. And this is something to me that I see people paying a big attention to. This is on their radar. This is a part of an awareness that is very, very big. Um, and then I wrote, the technologies, they may be totally unprecedented. Everything we have is unprecedented, right? But the essential human things that we question that make us human are not. Okay, these are not unprecedented. So these are all really ancient things like fear, courage, control, freedom, love, and truth. These are ancient, as old as time and human beings, right? Fear, courage, control, freedom, love, and truth. The only thing that's changed are the tools, the stage. So think about the stage, your phone, your laptop, the billboards, the stage of the tools have changed for all of these things. And the players, the politicians, the newscasters, the actors and actresses, and the people, like at the World Economic Forum, and all the actors, the players have changed. But the deepest forces are still here, okay? So to me, this is the real question. It's not whether AI, digital currency, or digital IDs will transform civilization, because here's what I think. They will. I think at this point, it's not, can we stop it? I think it's this. The deeper question is whether I can remain connected to what is eternal while everything else around me is changing. That's the deeper question. Okay, so then here's a couple of questions. Can I remain centered when the world becomes louder? Can I remain sovereign when systems become more complex? Okay, can I remain present when fear is constantly being sold? And can I remain who I am beneath every label, every role, and every digital identity? Even now, you have to have a driver's license, a passport. You have to have ID to do almost everything. To do almost everything. And so, can I remember who I am beneath every label, every role, and every digital identity? So it's not that whether these things will transform. It's a matter, I think, of when it will be more complete. And then we have to ask ourselves those questions, because I believe that we can run both programs at the same time. We can stay sovereign, we can stay free, and we can benefit from what technology does bring to us. And I believe that with every depth of who I am. I've really released the fear. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to do what I know will opt me out and keep me free. And there might be some interesting moments in the near future where it might look a little dark and a little scary. We might have blackouts. We might have some food shortages. We might have energy shortages. We might, who knows? But the thing is this is where the test will be. Where will you be in your awareness and your evolvement and your consciousness and your understanding of what it means to be human when these things happen? Because like I said, I do believe it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it doesn't take the majority of human beings to make the change. And we all know that. So then I wrote this. That is what this moment is truly asking of me. I'm not being asked to predict the future or fight every battle or convince anyone else. Okay. But but to become an elder. Okay. I'm being asked to become an elder. And I say that for myself because of the age I am. I know I'm not a 95-year-old elder, but God willing, I will be there. I will be there, and I will hopefully be still spreading consciousness and love. And I believe in the next very few years, I don't think it's, 30 years, I'll be 95. So it's not going to take that for these changes, these massive changes. I think humanity is going to keep startling us in big, beautiful, bold ways throughout the rest of this decade. I say hold on for the ride and keep raising your awareness, your consciousness, and all of the things. Keep raising that. So, and I think what I'm here to do is to carry a perspective instead of to panic. And I think I need to be here to carry wisdom instead of a reaction. And this applies to anybody who sees this, right? This is what we're here to carry. We're here to carry wisdom instead of a reaction to everything. Just bring it down to what feels right in your nervous system. This is what I talked about earlier, regulating your nervous system. If you learn how to do that, breathe deep, ground yourself, step away from your technology, love on your family. Stepping away from your technology is one of the most important things you can do. And you need to do this every single day. Okay. So let's see what I wrote. We need to remember that the human spirit has survived every single age. I just can't buy into the fear that humanity is ending and our species. I think we're so far away, if ever. That's what we hear. Like, this is the end of the human species. There's going to be no more real humans left. So I don't buy that. Okay. I do not think humanity is approaching the end. I think it's just approaching a choice. Okay. That's what I wrote. And the choice, maybe it's my job not to fear the choice. Maybe it's not my job to fear the choice. I think that's what sometimes my writing gets wonky. And I need to choose trust over fear and presence over prediction. I don't need to know exactly what's going to happen. I need to choose creation over reaction and curiosity over certainty. If I'm searching for certainty somewhere, like the economic system, like I said, the monetary system changing fascinates me. And it does make me a little bit anxious. Am I going to be ready? Am I going to be prepared? Am I going to be able to take care of my family and all the stuff? So what if I approach this whole thing with curiosity instead of the need for certainty? That is beautiful. Okay, so here's 5 actually more very deep questions that you can journal on this week. If I completely trusted that life was unfolding for the highest good, what would I stop worrying about immediately? And then this, what parts of my attention have been captured by fear, outrage, or prediction? And what would happen if I reclaimed that energy for creation, joy, and purpose? Okay, what would happen to your life if you did that? And then this question, who am I beneath? My age, my history, my benefits, or my beliefs, my politics, my successes, my failures, and even my digital identity? Who am I beneath all that? Who are you really beneath those things? Okay. And then this question, I think this is probably one of the most important questions. I have these 5. This is number 4. What wisdom have I earned? And I wrote this for myself through 65 years of living that the younger generations may need from me right now. I wrote that because I thought this is in the forefront of my mind on a really regular basis. It's probably why I talk about it so much, right? Because I think we all have a bit of an obligation to the younger generations, and this is not new. This is ancient, where the elders get to pass down wisdom. Okay, so what wisdom have I earned through 65 years of living that younger generations may need from me right now? This really stands out for me when I'm with my grandchildren. My granddaughter's almost 15 and my grandson is almost 13. And I think about this all the time because I remember being those ages. I remember them very clearly. And wow, I think about the people in my life, not just my parents, who were very impactful, but both sets of grandparents. I was a little closer physically to my dad's parents, but we lived far away from my mom's parents. They lived in Southern California. I was raised in Idaho. So I didn't see them very much and I didn't get to know them on a really regular basis. But I do think about the moments of wisdom that I did get from them, right? And then this 5th question. If this truly is a civilizational turning point, what qualities of character do I want to embody so that I can walk through it with integrity, peace, and courage? What qualities do I want my character to have? And I don't think these don't ever get old. These don't, I don't care. I'm going to be 95 and journaling and trying to become the best 95-year-old I can possibly be. You know, I don't think you get to a point of super awakening and super awareness and a place in your life where you're absolutely perfect. And I say that with a bit of a grain of salt because I do believe this as well. I believe we are perfect. We are a piece of God, and God is perfect. And we are part of that. But maybe what I'm talking about and thinking about is just um, this brilliant life that we get to live in these amazing human bodies and the experiences that we get to have in this time as things are speeding up. And this, I think we chose to come down here. I say this every freaking time, but I believe it so strongly. It's like, let me go. Let me go down there. I want to go when the world's going to be wild and so much change and so much chaos and so much growth and so much fun. And let's see how I handle it, right? There it is. Okay, so then what I thought, okay, and this is how I'm going to end this. I found some really beautiful quotes from the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu. This has always been some of my favorite quotes to turn to. I've run across them, and I really have gravitated this because this is about going with the flow of life and not trying to fight it. So here are a few of my favorites. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. This is very famous, and you've probably heard this many, many times. And for me, this feels especially relevant right now. That's what I wrote. We live in a culture that is obsessed with urgency, but yet I find that nature just unfolds without anxiety. Nature just unfolds without anxiety. It just unfolds, right? Let's be like nature. And then this quote, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. And this is a reminder that growth often comes through surrender rather than force. Okay. And here's another one. All these are from the Tao Te Ching. The best way to live is like water. This is one of my favorites. Water benefits all things and it does not compete. It flows to places people reject and so is in harmony with the Tao. Oh, gotta read this again. This one has always been one of my favorites. The best way to live is like water. Water benefits all things and does not compete. It flows to places people reject and so is in harmony with the Tao. Oh, I love that. And here's what I wrote about that quote. Water doesn't argue with reality, okay? It moves around obstacles and eventually reaches the ocean, okay? It doesn't argue with reality. It just flows. It just flows. Like, that is so beautiful. Just be like water. I should get a t-shirt. I should get a tattoo. Be like water, right? And then here's another quote. Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Okay, this is from the Tao Te Ching, one of the greatest teachings from uncertain times. This brings clarity that often comes from stillness and not more effort. Okay, and then here's the last one. Life is a river. The resistance to the river is what creates suffering. Life is a river. The resistance to the river is what creates suffering. Don't resist the flow. Don't resist the river. You know, stay aware, stay growing, stay peaceful, stay grounded. There's so many reasons to be grateful that we are here during this brilliant time. And I think if we can go more with the flow of what is happening in this beautiful, amazing decade, you know, middle of 2026 is where, you know, I'm at the end of May here as I'm recording this. And I think that not just the end of the decade, but the end of this year, the end of 27, the end of 28, as we get to 2030, there are going to be, I just don't even think we're ready for the imaginings of how amazing this is going to be. This is what we have to realize. And the cool thing is we get to be a piece of that. We get to be a part of raising the consciousness. We do this individually. When my consciousness is high, when my joy is high, and my life is flowing and I'm letting it unfold as it's supposed to, um, the consciousness of the collective rises. I can impact that. You can impact that. We can all impact that on a massive level. So, if any of this resonates with you, I'd love to know what you think about this. I think this is a powerful way to continue walking through these incredible times. Be like a river. Don't fight it. When you fight the flow of the river, that's when the suffering is created. So I hope you have a beautiful last day of May of 2026. If you're watching this in June, happy June. But thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you next time.